Hey guys, I'm Game Advisor and welcome to our Icarus Week 72 Icarus update video. Today we'll be talking about what's new, what you need to know, and then giving you a little bit of our personal opinions on it. So let's go ahead and start talking about the explosive bullets update. So as far as this update goes, they're going to be adding in a new reworked system for how you actually craft ammunition and other explosive items, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that. The first thing you need to know is that in order to craft the new explosive bullets that have been added to the game, you're going to have to get to level 30 in order to do so. Once you are level 30, you will also need to have the volatile material resource unlocked in order to be able to craft this. Now to craft this new material, you're going to have to use a mortar and pistol or a chem bench. There is nothing else that will allow you to craft it, unfortunately, which does feel a little weird since there are other things that would normally let you craft this kind of stuff, but in this case you cannot. This material will also have a shelf life, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now, as far as to the bullet recipe revamp, this is what I meant when I said there was kind of a revamp for it. Previously, we were going to be able to craft one bullet for one iron ingot and some gunpowder. Pretty straightforward. They've changed that now so that you craft one iron ingot, which gives you 5 ammo casings. You then take those ammo casings and combine them with the other associated materials in order to craft 5 bullets. So for a rifle round, this would just be gunpowder, and same for a pistol, along with 1 ammo casing, just like we had before. It is worth noting that in some cases they have upped the cost of the gunpowder to 2 gunpowder opposed to 1 in order to kind of offset that cost of getting 5 ammo casings instead of 1 every time. Either way, this is a win for us, as less materials for more bullets is always a good thing. Now there is kind of an exception to this rule, and that's the shotgun ammunition. Previously we needed 1 copper ingot, 6 gunpowder, and 1 epoxy in order to make a bullet, and now we're going to need 1 ammo casing, just like we talked about earlier up above. We're going to need 5 copper nails, and we're going to need 6 gunpowder and 1 epoxy. So the only difference here is instead of making ammo casings only, we're going to have to take the copper ingot that we needed beforehand and turn it into nails, but since you get about 10 nails per copper ingot, this equates to you only needing 1 ingot for 2 shots instead of 1 ingot per shot. And to be honest with you, nobody really uses shotgun ammunition in the first place because shotguns are just not that good of a weapon, even with the new explosive bullets, which I'm going to start talking about right now. Currently, there are the 3 different types of explosive rounds. You've got pistol, rifle, and shotgun, each of which have their own set projectile damage, explosive damage amount, and radius. So essentially what this means is at the center of this radius, if you shoot the ground or directly hit the target right on top of them, you're going to go ahead and get that 300 explosive damage along with 200 projectile damage. Now, if you crit the head, from my testing, I believe that only the projectile damage is multiplied, not the explosive damage. So if you're really good at landing a lot of headshots, this ammunition really isn't that much better. However, if you're not hitting headshots a lot, or you're in a panic mode and just spraying down your opponent, then having these types of damage will give you a big advantage. You do of course have to be careful though, because these are explosive weapons, and if you do shoot something right on top of you, you're going to hurt yourself. What the radius here means is how far out the actual explosion will hit, and the closer to the center of that explosion it is, the more explosion damage you'll take. So if you're at the very edge of the radius, you might only take say 50 or 100 damage, but if you're at the dead center, you'll take the full 300. Now, in order to make this new ammunition, we need that volatile material we talked about before. The cost for that is 2 gunpowder, 2 oxite, and 2 spoiled plants, which is actually pretty darn cheap. And like we said before, it can only be made inside the mortar and pistol, as well as the chemistry bench. It's worth noting that these do also have a 10-minute shelf life timer, so you do have to use them within 10 minutes, and if you don't, they will simply decay and you will no longer have them. Now, the last big thing they changed here is probably my favorite thing, and that's the fact that they've made grenades now actually useful. Instead of doing 200 explosive damage, they now do 1,000. To be honest, I don't think this makes them that useful. I will say that having 1,000 explosion damage within a 1,500 range is pretty good. And I know these numbers seem arbitrary, but when you get in the game and see how big the explosions are, you just look at the visual effect and then give it a little bit of extra space, and that's about how far out it is. But the point is that 1,000 explosive damage brings these more in line with things like the hunting rifle and stuff like that when you're trying to deal out a lot of damage. It makes it useful whenever we've got a large pack of animals on certain missions, as well as even for fighting bosses. I will say I do think this should be a little bit higher. I don't feel like 1,000 is quite enough, considering you can hit for over 1,000 with a hunting rifle to the head, and you don't have to spend nearly as much material. I would like to see these brought up to maybe about 1,250. This is just my personal opinion for how I feel it should be balanced, and I'm sure everybody else is different. They did also increase the Larkwell ballistic arrow damage, which is cool, and I'm down with that. I don't think many people were using them in the first place, and I still don't think they will because of how expensive they are, but hey, you now have the ability to get an extra 100 damage out of each arrow. Along with all of those changes to grenades, they did also make it so that all grenade types will now stack to a 5 limit. This means you can carry 5 in one slot and not have to have 1 through like 5 on your hotbar taken up by grenades if you want to have 5 grenades on the ready. Again, bringing it more in line with the balance of the game. And as your final little bit of information for this update, they did also make it so that incendiary rounds can now be made for the pistols as well as rifles. Beforehand, it was just rifles, but now we can do pistol incendiary ammunition if that's something you were using in the first place. As far as Galileo progress goes, all they're really saying here is, hey, we're still working on fishing and adding more species to the game, as well as testing out our Steam trading card system, which is cool if you're into that kind of a thing. But to be honest here, this is again all the same stuff we've been hearing week after week about Galileo without actually being able to access it or actually really knowing what they're talking about. I know they're working and tweaking on it, and that's cool and all, and trying to give us updates, but these updates are literally just saying, hey guys, we're still working on it, don't worry, which is cool, but I don't feel like that's that big of an encouragement, to be honest with you. Either way, I'm glad that it's happening, and I'm sure it'll be out soon, so if you're excited for that, I'm guessing we're going to have about another 1.5 to 2 months before we see it. It could be sooner. Don't quote me on that. This is just my guess based on their original 3-month timeline they said it would take. And well, that's going to wrap up the video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I want to give a big shout out to our Platinum and Above channel members, which currently include Caustic FPV, Jonathan S., Gerald89, Jim Phillips, and AZ Blackbird. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you in the next one.